Hello, everybody. Welcome. I see more people coming online to the webinar. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're just going to wait a minute or two to let everybody in and make sure everyone's in okay. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I see more folks entering the webinar. We're just giving it one more minute to make sure everybody gets in okay. We'll start momentarily. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending this webinar about London's downtown plan. My name is Andrew, and I'm a manager with the City of London's communications team. Before we get started, I want to let everyone know that we're recording this meeting, and a copy of it will be added to the project's webpage at getinvolved.london.ca/downtown plan. The presentation tonight will provide an update about the ongoing work to develop a downtown plan. At different points in the presentation, we'll pause to collect your comments and answer some questions. And at the end of the evening, we'll follow the presentation with a question and answer period as well. To ask your question or share comments, we ask that you please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. This icon is located at the bottom of your screen and is marked with the word Q&A. Comments will be shared with the project team to review after the webinar. So if you have a question or comment, feel free to type it in at any point during tonight's webinar. To ensure that we keep communication streamlined and that we don't miss anyone's questions or comments, we've disabled the chat function for the webinar, so please use the Q&A button. If you have a question or comment but are not comfortable asking it while this meeting is being recorded, or you wish to share personal information in your question about your address or a specific property, you are welcome to contact us directly at dmp@london.ca after the meeting. And finally, if you're joining the webinar by phone call tonight, please share your comments and questions with us after the webinar by emailing dmp@london.ca and we'll follow up with you. Before we start the presentation, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we're gathered today on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lunapewek, and Attawandaron. We acknowledge all the treaties that are specific to this area. The Two-Row Wampum Belt Treaty of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy Silver Covenant Chain, the Beaver Hunting Grounds of the Haudenosaunee-Nanfan Treaty of 1701, the McKee Treaty of 1790, the London Township Treaty of 1796, the Huron Tract Treaty of 1827 with the Anishinaabe, and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous people, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to society. We hold all that is in the natural world in our highest esteem and give honor to the wonderment of all things within creation. The three Indigenous nations that are neighbors to London are the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and the Munsee Delaware Nation, who all continue to live as sovereign nations with individual and unique languages, cultures, and customs. This land acknowledgement is a first step towards reconciliation. Awareness means nothing without action. It is important that everyone takes the necessary steps towards decolonizing practices. We encourage everyone to be informed about the traditional lands, treaties, history, and cultures of the Indigenous people local to their region. Thank you. And with that, I'll next pass it over to Mike McCauley from the City of London to introduce the project and project team. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Mike McCauley. I am the Manager of Community Improvement and Urban Regeneration, and on behalf of the City of London, we are pleased to present this virtual summit providing an update on the development of the new downtown plan. We are excited to share with you an update on the plan and the progress we have made, and I'm joined by members of our City Project team, our City Communications team, and our consultant, the Canadian Urban Institute. To start things off, I'll just provide some background on the plan itself. The new downtown plan is being created in response to a council resolution from November 28, 2023, which identified the need for an updated strategy to address the current conditions and challenges facing downtown London. Proposed in two phases, the first phase includes a thorough background study, including data collection, policy review, and to establish foundational components. The second phase includes the development of actionable strategies and initiatives to be included in the final plan that is intended to be presented to Municipal Council early next year. The downtown plan is intended to develop strategies that support residential growth, commercial and employment growth, and establish downtown as a vibrant destination for Londoners and visitors. Downtown is vital to London because it serves as the cultural, civic, retail, and economic heart of the city. Our downtown is home to incredible businesses, restaurants, and events, and more people are choosing to live downtown. Tonight's update will provide you with an inside look into the background study and the initial findings that the Canadian Urban Institute has uncovered. And with that, I'm pleased to turn the session over to our project manager from the Canadian Urban Institute, Jennifer Barrett.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here, and we really appreciate the opportunity to interact with many of you and to show you what we've done to date and to get your feedback on the downtown plan. I'm going to run through quickly what we'll be doing tonight. We'll have a short presentation by myself and my colleague, Catherine Oosterbaan, who is acting as our economic development specialist. And that will provide you an overview of our work to date, and we'll follow that with a discussion and a feedback session based on 4 themes, including public space and infrastructure, development and land use, transportation, access and equity, and economic and cultural resilience. And that will be followed by a general Q&A, which will be facilitated by Andrew from the Communications Department. The first thing I'd like to do is just give you an overview of the project timeline. The project was launched in April of this year, and we are just at the tail end of completing phase 1 of the project, which was our research and engagement session. And this will culminate in the 2 summits, one that we did on September 18th and another one this evening, culminating in a background study, which will be provided to committee and council in the next month. That will be followed by phase 2 of the plan, in which we do some additional engagement and finalize the downtown plan in the spring of next year. This is just a summary of our work to date, and you'll see some of the details in this as we go through the presentation. We've done a significant amount of data analysis and mapping on a variety of topics that intersect with the downtown. This includes the population, both residents and workers, economics, transportation, the physical characteristics of the downtown, and many of the other elements that make up the downtown. We've done a review of our planning and policy contexts, looking at city policies from a variety of areas. We have done a scan of common practices. This includes downtown revitalization plans as well as a variety of other plans throughout North America and some international examples. These 3 things have culminated in a strengths, barriers, and opportunities summary, which has also been substantiated by a significant amount of public engagement. We had a public survey which was open for several months, culminating in 2,400 survey responses. We've had 10,000 touch points through social media and the Get Involved page, and we've individually engaged with 350 individuals prior to this evening. And as I mentioned, this will culminate in our background study. So the objectives of tonight's event is to share the findings and research to date, to invite a diverse range of feedback on actions for the downtown plan, and to begin to identify the direction for how we will proceed with next steps as we write the downtown plan and the implementation of the plan. Our study area, for context, is shown in the map here. It is made up of, to the northern boundary of Oxford Street, to the south, the CN Railway, to the west, the Thames River, and to the east, the mature established neighborhoods just east of downtown. And the intent of the downtown plan, which builds on some of what Mike provided in his introduction, is to set priorities and direction for downtown in a number of ways, through land use, that are the type of activities and buildings that can exist and be developed in the downtown, transportation, how we move around downtown, public space and how it's used, entertainment, businesses and economic activity, equity, and environmental sustainability. The goal is to align this plan with existing municipal policies, as well as recognizing that there may be potential amendments to plans that currently exist. The plan should reflect community priorities and information, and that is why engagement sessions much like this are important to building the plan. And ultimately, the plan will create actions that have an implementation plan behind them. This will include guiding investment to implement the plan, clarifying the roles of government and other partners such as the private sector, funders, and nonprofits, as well as including key performance metrics or indicators that can be used to track progress on implementation of the plan. I mentioned before that we have done a solid review of many of the plans that intersect with the downtown and plans that have been done for the downtown previous. This includes going as far back as the Millennium Plan in the 1990s, and more recently, the Our Move Forward Plan done in 2016. In addition to that, we've reviewed community improvement plans, heritage plans, cultural plans, plans regarding transportation, parks and recreation, health and safety, any strategic documents related to the downtown, as well as zoning and land use. For our common practices and review of downtown plans, we've looked at 62 different plans in total from a variety of cities across North America, and including some international examples. And these include many plans that have been created in the last 5 years to respond to many of the challenges that downtowns are seeing in a post-COVID and post-pandemic environment. In looking at the downtown plans that we've reviewed and common practices, we found a set of commonalities that we see across plans, and this helps us to create a framework in order to build the plan for downtown London, knowing that the things happening in London are unique to the city. These include a mix of uses, so understanding that downtowns will cease to be a place just for commercial use and office use, but really that downtowns will start to become places with more mixed activities. So this includes requiring flexible land use, office conversions, such as the ones you're starting to see in London, and a diversity of community spaces to help activate the downtown and bring people. Mobility and connectivity is a common theme across many of the plans we've looked at, making sure there are a variety of ways to access and move around downtown. We see culture and cultural events as being at the heart of many of the plans in order to provide new opportunities for people to come downtown and new opportunities for economic development activities. All of the plans have included an inclusive and holistic approach to homelessness and public safety, knowing that in order for downtown to thrive, it's important that people have a sense of safety and that our vulnerable population is considered in the downtown. Local economic development is at the core of our plan, and we'll talk through many of these strategies and opportunities for that in downtown London. And then climate resilience and equity is key to many of the plans that we've looked at, ensuring that any new and existing infrastructure is done so in a way to make it resilient to climate change and severe weather events, but also to ensure that we're building in equity into any investment. And finally, you see on the bottom the importance of including newcomers, racialized populations, and Indigenous communities in the creation of the plan and in the outcome of the plan, particularly knowing that many of them reside in the downtown. I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Catherine, to take you through some of the research and data.
Thanks, Jennifer, and it's my pleasure to be here this evening to share back some of what we've been hearing. So at this stage, we've been compiling our research. We want to share a little bit about the context of downtown London, who's living there, who's working there, what have we been hearing about the downtown, the strengths, the opportunities, the assets, the challenges. So I'll start off by sharing about a little bit more about the housing and demographics. So the downtown has been growing rapidly. So since 2021, the population has increased by 28%. That is significant and pointing to a significant change in the downtown and that growing population. A lot of that population is renters, the majority of them, and they're living in multi-unit housing, which is fantastic. There's diverse housing options in the downtown. And it's important to note, however, those households do have about a $20,000 a year lower income versus the citywide income. So there is a little bit of an income gap there. And there's also higher rates of unemployment in the downtown. In terms of the types of employment downtown, it's about a 50-50 split between white collar type of jobs and service sector workers. And the population is generally diverse, so 32% are visible minorities. Many are first and second generation immigrants, contributing to a really vibrant and diverse downtown core. And a lot of the individuals living downtown are actually on the younger side, so a lot of students, recent grads, and young professionals. Next slide, please, Jen. So in terms of the downtown and what's taking place on a day-to-day basis, there's about a 43,000 person daytime population, almost 38,000 workers coming into the downtown on a day-to-day basis. There's about 664 commercial retail units, and the majority of those are oriented towards service-related businesses, things like professional services, hairdressers, personal care services, also a large percentage towards food and beverage, and a smaller percentage towards entertainment and recreation. So things like the museum, the Grand Theater, the galleries, and things of that nature. And the remaining 30% are split between retail, which is about 12%, and vacant spaces. Next slide, please. So what we've seen overall since 2019 is office vacancies have been increasing. So fairly significantly to 2025, almost a 20% increase. However, Class A, kind of that most desirable office space, the vacancy has decreased between 2024 and 2025. So we're starting to see that office space come back. That demand is increasing. The vacancy is decreasing. Some of that older office space or maybe less desirable office space, you know, the future is uncertain for them, but there are solutions underway to try and turn those spaces into more viable uses. So the city has an office to residential community improvement plan program underway, and they have actually one completed project and two that are underway. And at this point, there's more applications than funding that is available. So there's a big demand to look at unique reuse of those spaces that maybe the office space is no longer in as significant demand. Retail vacancies, on the other hand, remain virtually unchanged from 2023, and approximately 1 in 5 retail spaces is vacant. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because it allows for opportunities for new renewal within the community, but just a little bit of consideration to set that context. And to further illustrate that, you'll see that most of the businesses are concentrated. This map kind of shows the concentration of businesses within the downtown, and there's certain concentrations along Richmond Row, Dundas Place, and in the downtown core area that you can see the concentration of businesses. But there are some areas that do suffer from vacancies. So you can see kind of in that City Plaza area around, I believe it's Dundas and Wellington there. There is vacancy as well. So opportunity for growth, but lots of businesses already operating within the core. Just to provide that context in terms of the investment that's gone on in terms of mobility and infrastructure. So again, to support some of that residential development taking place in the downtown, that has created over 17,000 new residential units. There's been $24 million of infrastructure investment in recent years. There's been significant investment into the active transportation network and the bus rapid transportation network. And there is the ongoing maintenance and enhancement of riverfront amenities, such as ongoing reinvestment in Harrison Ivy Parks and Victoria Park, as well as both passive green spaces and event sites. So thinking about movement of residents in the downtown, about 40% are using transit or active travel and 60% are driving versus non-downtown residents where 85% of residents are driving. So what we really found was London is very car-centric, which is more car-centric than other communities that are similarly dense. So thinking about that as how do we leverage opportunities to maximize transit and maximize active transportation where there are connections into the downtown and opportunities to leverage those. Next slide, please. And then also, lastly, I'll just kind of flag, London has some very interesting architectural diversity from the early turn of the century. There's some industrial buildings, there are historic Victorian residential spaces, and modern to mid to late 20th century high rises. A real mix of diverse and interesting architecture, some contemporary residential along that riverfront. But again, there's buildings that are older, buildings that are heritage buildings that are risking becoming obsolete due to lack of reinvestment over time. And now we'll jump into the strengths that we've uncovered. So downtown London is the heart of the city. Not only is there a huge concentration of diverse and interesting businesses, there's institutions such as Fanshawe and Western in the downtown, and there's a whole suite of services that service the residents of both the downtown and the broader community. It's a critical center of economic activity, contributing to 14% of the city's employment, a significant amount of the city's property tax base. There's cultural destinations that enrich the city's creative identity for both residents and visitors. There's that growing population to take advantage of the opportunities and new retail and services coming into the downtown. There's fantastic public spaces and transportation options to really reinforce its role as a central gathering place. There's excellent natural assets, and it's a dense historic core with heritage, character, and walkability. So lots of opportunity in the community. It is a highly dense community, similar to communities such as Winnipeg or Halifax. Next slide, please. The downtown also has a number of great assets. So thinking of, there's been a number of investments into destination elements and public realm improvements to foster place-based outcomes. So things like Covent Garden Market and Canada Life Place, Dundas Place. There's economic anchors through the post-secondary institutions, healthcare and financial services. It's relatively affordable and in terms of housing, and there is available housing, especially in the rental market, which is not that common. There's vacant office and retail space, which again, can pose a potential challenge, but also allows for that renewal, new ideas, adaptive reuse that, how can we potentially leverage that space into something creative? There's a young, educated, and diverse population, and there's major venues and facilities to draw people into the downtown. The theater, the galleries, the museum, major sports facilities, the UNESCO City of Music designation, all great opportunities to leverage. In terms of challenges, certainly with the post-COVID era where hybrid and remote work is a thing, we've seen decreased foot traffic, and that has impacted the business community. There's been public safety concerns, and that's resulted to some degree in higher commercial vacancies. Positioning the downtown as a social, cultural, and hospitality hub can introduce certain vulnerabilities. So, those businesses that are focused on, experience and entertainment versus the goods and the everyday activities and services that residents might need versus the workers and visitors. So again, kind of finding that right business mix is going to be important. Lack of diverse retail anchors. So, will the core be able to attract a broad cross-section of residents and visitors? What are those anchor retail destinations that are drawing people into the community, into the downtown? As I noted, those historic buildings in the downtown, they need that ongoing investment. And if they're not receiving that investment, they risk becoming obsolete. And then, there's a number of different boundaries within the downtown for both policy purposes and organizational management purposes. And that can create some confusion and conflicting priorities. So those have been some of the overarching challenges that we've heard in the London community. So we're going to move on to discussing the themes. And I will start off by sharing the first theme, and I'll pass it over to Jen. But I'm going to share kind of a list of what some of those themes are. So so we're going to jump into these themes. And sorry, Jen. So these themes, so we have 4 different themes that we want to discuss with you folks today. So the first one is around public space and resilient infrastructure. So really, how do we create downtown as a vibrant destination? Create it as a place that's going to want to make you visit, to draw you in. The next set of discussion is going to focus around development and land use. So downtown as a place to call home. How do we build downtown as a place for residents where, downtown residents feel at home, where the community feels at home as well. The third discussion will focus around transportation access and equity. So downtown as a welcoming community, as an easy place to get to and travel within. And then the last session will focus on economic and cultural resilience. So downtown as a place to work, learn, and grow a business. So we're going to jump into the opportunity for you to ask some questions and offer some comments around each theme. This is going to start with one of us, either myself or Jen, will introduce the theme, share some insights of what we've heard around that theme, kind of give some background to the theme, share a series of questions for you to consider, and we're going to welcome you to provide your input in the question and answer area. So we'll have about 2 to 3 minutes to start adding comments, and you can continue adding comments throughout the 15-minute time period or until we wrap up. But after about 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to start discussing some of those comments and maybe responding to any questions that there may be. And I will bring Andrew back from communications just to remind you of that process before we jump into those questions. Next slide, please. So jumping into that first theme, public space and resilient infrastructure, thinking of downtown as a vibrant destination, this theme really has a goal of how do we improve and expand downtown's public realm, the green space, the infrastructure to support resilience, accessibility, everyday use. How do we make downtown a place that you want to go, that you want to visit? So some of what we've heard is, we want to see more downtown year-round vibrancy, activities throughout the year in public space. So there's great downtown events right now, but there's not kind of that ongoing vibrancy. It's lacking those everyday activities and looking at how we can kind of spread those across the downtown in public space, the riverfront and other sites to really encourage everyone to embrace the downtown at all seasons, not just for a large event. Looking at opportunities to improve public safety, thinking about shared streets, the bike routes, Dundas Place. How do we create a safer environment for everyone to be able to enjoy the downtown? The desire for more comfortable public space, so seating, shade to sit down and enjoy, items that you're buying from the community businesses or just the vibe of the street and what's going on, and amenities to encourage and support more diverse individuals to spend time downtown. So, folks across different ages, different socio-demographics, families feel welcome and feel like there's activities for them to engage in the downtown. And lastly, the need to balance capital investments with operation and maintenance needs. So, what can we invest in terms of new infrastructure, and how do we make sure the downtown really presents itself as that welcoming space for people to enjoy? So we're going to share the questions, and then I'll ask Andrew to jump in. So as we think about this theme and think about, comments that you may have around it or questions that you may have around it, these are the elements that we really wanted to dig into. So what solutions are there to create public spaces that foster equity, belonging, and safety for users of all ages and backgrounds? So really, how do we create a welcoming space for everyone in the community, for you to want to go to the downtown and enjoy what's taking place there? What design or operational changes would make key spaces like Market Lane, the riverfront, more usable in all seasons? So, what would you like to see there? How would you like that space to change to make it more functional for you and how you want to use that space? What new amenities are most needed to make public spaces welcoming for all ages and backgrounds? What would make the downtown more attractive to visitors on a more frequent basis? And how can retail and business owners contribute to a vibrant public realm? So I'll pass it over to Andrew just to remind you guys how to give that feedback.
Thanks, Catherine. Yes, I know some of you have joined us this evening midway through the presentation. So tonight, to share your comments and questions, please use the Q&A button on Zoom. So that's at the bottom of your screen, marked Q&A, and you can submit any questions or comments or answer these questions on the screen right now. And everything will be shared at the end of the webinar with the project team. So please share any questions that we can help answer tonight, comments that you would like the project team to consider, and any input you have to these questions. And like Catherine mentioned, we're hoping to hear in this theme about public spaces. How does a space downtown make you feel? How can it be improved? And what ideas do you have to make downtown a more attractive place to visitors? What makes a vibrant public realm? So we'll give it a minute or two, see what questions and comments come in. I'll share any questions or any clarification that's being asked back to Catherine and Jennifer and Mike. And if there's any themes that come out of the comments, we'll speak about those too as well. So please take a second and use the Q&A button on Zoom. I'm seeing different comments come in. Thanks, everybody. Different ideas, different experiences. Here's one question about retail and what retail experiences could be brought to the core. Maybe this is for Jennifer and Catherine, as you spoke a little bit about the current context in London, but are there any active plans to encourage a broader mix of retail to come to the core?
So maybe I'll jump in. At this point, there is not an active plan to encourage a broader mix of retail to come to the core, but certainly the downtown plan will be looking at retail considerations and looking at the right mix of retail, and ensuring that, it meets the needs of the changing demographics of the downtown, the existing office workers, the increasing residential users of the downtown, and certainly as use of the downtown grows, any visitors that are coming in as well.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm seeing different comments about cleanliness and maintenance. A few questions have come in about pedestrian-friendly areas or street closures for events and activations. Could we speak a little bit about what might be done or possible for more accessible spaces downtown or shared streets like Dundas Place?
I can get started, and then if there's anyone from the city who'd like to chime in. So I think we understand that Dundas Place and its redevelopment has been developed as a flex street, and the benefits of that is that it's meant to serve a variety of purposes. So it can function as a roadway that runs east-west in the city and through the downtown, but it can also be closed off and function more as a public plaza or an event space. And we know that closures have happened in order to make that happen. I think what we're hoping to do through this plan is acknowledge where the balance is between those two, acknowledging that Dundas, serves as a transportation corridor, and there are certain times of the year as well that lend themselves to closures of the street in order to make it a place where individuals can spend time, where events can happen. And I think key to this is also understanding what happens on the edges of streets when they're closed. So how can we encourage businesses to have patios, to sort of reflect what's going on in an event space in their own business? So how can there be a relationship between a place like Dundas Street and the businesses to help create a kind of seamless interaction between the two so that the businesses are seeing more activity and they are also drawing people to the city where events and other activities may be happening.
Thanks, Jennifer. A lot of other great comments are coming in. A few comments and questions about parking and experiences for parking, both for vehicle parking, but also bike parking is being mentioned here, particularly valet bicycle parking as what might be possible for valet bicycle parking in the future. I'm wondering if we could speak a little bit about parking in the downtown, both for vehicles and bikes.
Sure. Again, I can take a start at it. We've certainly heard loud and clear that there are frustrations with parking. I think the frustrations kind of depend on what you're going to downtown for, whether you're going there for a work day or an evening event or for a quick errand. And I think the frustrations are across not knowing where to park, not, different parking spaces having different time limits on also different costs. And so we understand that there is, in some ways, a need to address the complexity of the current parking situation and to better provide education and information so individuals don't feel like this is a barrier to coming downtown. We've also heard a lot about bike parking and bike routes and cycling routes into the downtown. And I would say we understand that the city has provided some existing downtown parking for cyclists, and there are opportunities to provide more of that. And I think in terms of the large events, we can certainly look to other places to see the advantages of things like valet parking, where you don't need to find a place to lock your bike, but rather you turn it over to a valet and get a ticket and you come back much like a coat check. And that's certainly something we've seen successful in other places. It makes people feel comfortable about leaving their bike. And I think it encourages people to come downtown on a bike rather than a car or a cab.
Thanks, Jennifer. Before we move on, again, thank you everybody for sharing your comments. This is all going to be shared with the project team after the webinar. But I am seeing several comments about health and homelessness and what is being done to support Londoners who are experiencing homelessness. Could I pass it over to Mike to just speak a little bit about how that might relate to the downtown plan and what is in scope of the downtown plan?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for the question. The downtown plan is not intended to respond to the health and homelessness issues, as these are being addressed directly through other important city and community initiatives that are already in motion. The downtown's plan focus is to provide a long-term strategy for economic opportunities that support residential and commercial growth and in creating a vibrant destination for visitors. We do recognize that the downtown is experiencing health and homelessness challenges, and urgent work is underway to respond to this crisis through the whole of community system response, which does focus on building highly supportive housing and hubs while supporting different pathways from encampments to shelters for the most vulnerable members in our community.
Thanks, Mike. So Jen and Catherine, I'll pass it back over to you. We have a lot of comments here about wider sidewalks, shared streets, more events, ideas for events, shuttle services from other areas in the downtown to the downtown during events. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your ideas and comments, and we'll move on to the next theme.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. And thanks for doing the summary. That's helpful for us to have the context as we go into the next themes. So the next thing we want to touch on is downtown as a place to call home. So this is what we're calling development and land use. So this is both where and how we're building housing, what kind of housing we're building, but also what are the other things that are happening in downtown that support more residents, as well as other people coming into the downtown. And the goal of this theme is to really strengthen the mix of uses. So how do we bring more diversity to what's happening? This can be at the ground floor and storefronts. It can be on upper stories of buildings, both old and new. And how do we repurpose or reutilize spaces that may be underutilized or vacant? And so what we've heard so far is that there's certainly vacant and underutilized spaces, both indoor and outdoor, that could be better used. And the examples I've provided here are City Plaza, Jubilee Square, and of course, other vacant spaces at the street level. But also, I would say, being mindful of small areas, alleyways that could be repurposed, such as Market Lane, for more activity or artwork. The need for competitive economic incentives was something that was raised by the development community. This means that the incentives that are in place now, we should have a relook at those and make sure that they still serve the purpose of the downtown and align with the goals of the downtown plan when it comes forward. We understand that downtown is overly dependent on events and employment to bring people, but how and what can we do with, how can we reduce commercial vacancy and what can we do to bring people in different ways? What would you like to see in downtown that would bring you there that are reasons you're not coming now? And what type of educational or family-oriented amenities would also help bring people to downtown? This could be things like daycares. It could be more schools. It could also be training opportunities. So we know that Fanshawe has a campus, but are there other opportunities to be able for people to have learning opportunities in the downtown? And for the list of questions, I'll run through them quickly. You can all read them here on the screen as well. What short-term projects could be tested to draw people daily into underutilized spaces? So as we think about repurposing spaces like City Plaza or a vacant storefront, how might we test some ideas with short-term leases or temporary activations that are more like events to understand what are some of the opportunities in downtown? How might vacant commercial properties be used to bring more people? For example, how can there be a collaborative effort between the city, a property owner, the BIA, or others who are already in the downtown? What types of changes to incentives or funding could make downtown more competitive? So how would we bring people who are thinking of investing downtown into the downtown versus somewhere else in the city? What changes to regulations would make things more vibrant? Are there things that you know of that are creating barriers or restrictions to doing things in downtown? And what amenities would you like to see or would be more beneficial, both as a visitor, but also for those who are living in the downtown?
Thanks, Jennifer. A few comments have come in. We'll just give it a second as people submit their comments. In terms of downtown amenities and land use, a few comments have come in regarding a grocery store in the downtown. I believe that's something that's been shared through our public engagement, what we've heard from folks online and other pop-ups and events that we've done. Maybe I could pass it back to you, Jennifer or Catherine, to speak about a grocery store in the downtown.
I can take that one. Yeah, this is something that's been raised by certainly residents. We know that you can buy a variety of food items at the market, and there's a fantastic farmers market in the Rotary Square in front of the market. But I think what people are missing is a lot of the other things that a grocery store would provide, which would give you, a more the ability to remain in downtown as a resident and not have to have a car, not have to travel outside of the downtown to meet some of those broader needs for food or other essential supplies. And so that is something we've heard. And I think, we're looking to opportunities where we've seen cities and private property owners work collaboratively to figure out what the tipping point is. Is it number of residents? Is it a certain location? Is there some way you could test certain options on a small site and then build that into a larger, more permanent grocery store?
Thanks, Jennifer. A few other comments and suggestions have involved different programs or initiatives to support businesses or mixed use properties. This might be for Mike or the CUI team, but could we speak a little bit about what programs might exist to support businesses downtown, whether that's involving facades or community improvement programs, or what might be considered to support mixed use development for residents, businesses, services, all on a property together.
Yeah, I can take this one. And then if Jennifer has anything to add, she can jump in. Certainly, we have our downtown community improvement plan and our core area community improvement plan, which do currently have several incentive programs, such as facade improvement loans, upgrade to building code loan programs. We have our office to residential construction conversion program, and we do have a vacant commercial space fit out program to support business tenants with opening their business. Certainly, there's kind of two actions that we're looking at right now. Within the downtown plan, we are considering reviews of our incentive programs, looking if there's any incentive programs we should be offering. That will come in phase 2 when we start developing these strategies and actions. And the city is also undertaking a economic development strategy, and that work is underway. So we're also looking to make sure that whatever the downtown plan brings forward, it aligns with sort of the city's overall strategy for economic development. And certainly when we get into the business of talking about supporting businesses, attracting businesses, looking at incentive programs to develop a business or attract certain clusters downtown. We're hoping to align with the economic development strategy and include any actions or strategies within the downtown plan.
Thanks, Mike. Jennifer or Catherine, anything to add to that?
No, I think that was a great summary. I would say maybe I will just add one thing, which is I think, some of what we're looking at is what are the solutions or what are the problems we're solving for and how incentive might meet multiple create multiple solutions. So it might create a business incubation opportunity. It might enliven a ground floor street. It might provide opportunities to leverage the UNESCO designation. And so the more we can see these incentives as kind of multi-serving in terms of the goals and initiatives for the downtown plan, I think the more we will see uptake and the more success we'll see.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, a lot of comments coming in about incentives for businesses, a lot of comments about incentives or different programs to support art in the downtown, murals in the downtown, some comments and ideas about bringing post-secondary students to the downtown, engaging high schools and students in different art programs to participate downtown, electric vehicle chargers, comments about food trucks. One question that's come in is about rents. Are rents competitive downtown for commercial properties? How might London compare?
Well, maybe I'll just jump in and say that, what we heard from the business community and from those organizations that support business development within the community is that the commercial rents downtown are generally very competitive. Businesses are often locating downtown because of the affordability as a startup opportunity. So it's a good opportunity from a startup business perspective.
Thanks, Catherine. I'll pass it back to Jennifer and Catherine, and we can move on to the next theme.
Great. So the next one is also me. So this was downtown as a welcoming place, a place that is easy to get to and to travel within. And I think I want to highlight here that there are two themes really that we want to address. One is the idea of mobility, ensuring that people can get around easily and choose a variety of means, but also how can we better reflect the needs of diverse community residents, whether you're a worker or a resident in the downtown, are we providing accessibility options to a variety of individuals? And so the goal here was really to ensure safe, equitable, and welcoming access for all, and to also be able to improve movement into and within downtown. And so what we've heard is downtown needs to feel safe, welcoming, and accessible for diverse communities. That safety concerns, whether they are real or perceived, will deter people from visiting downtown. That access to all modes of transportation serves multiple purposes. It balances congestion or reduces congestion if people have other opportunities to travel through various means, but it also creates what we call transportation equity. It means that those who don't have a car, don't have access to a car, are able to still access downtown. We've heard that the parking system is an ongoing concern, high costs and a lack of knowledge, some of the issues that I touched on previously. And we've also heard about the importance of a better integration of the regional transit system. So London is lucky to have not only a downtown Via Rail station, but to have multiple regional buses that take people from the outlying areas into downtown and also from downtown London into some of the rural areas and even as far as Toronto. And so how can these services be better integrated so that they're easy to connect between one and the other, but that also that they're not creating things like congestion where you have multiple buses stopping and idling in different parts of the downtown. In terms of questions for this, so we put together a list of questions which include what strategies or improvements could make it easier and more convenient to get downtown by any mode. So if you're currently someone who drives, what would the thing be that would encourage you to take the train or to ride public transit? I guess the train would be outside of downtown, or to walk, perhaps park your vehicle at a longer distance and walk. Is improved wayfinding signage, would that be helpful? Would it be useful to be able to know, without having to rely on your phone or knowledge of the downtown, how to find certain amenities in the downtown, the museum, the library, or performance space? Are there ways to improve pedestrian and cyclist safety downtown, especially in high use areas? So we know that Dundas goes from having a separated bike lane into having cyclists and cars both on the same route. And so are there ways to help improve the safety, both for cyclists and those on the roadway, but also for the pedestrians alongside of them? How can parking be modernized? What incentives would encourage more sustainable transit to downtown? So what incentives would encourage you to leave your car at home and take the bus? How can transportation planning also address equity, belonging, and safety? We heard a lot about individuals coming downtown in the evenings but not being able to get home late at night. This is not only people visiting, but also those who are working in the downtown. And then how can downtown be more welcoming for diverse populations? This could be age, cultural background, et cetera. Are there things in the downtown that you would like to see that would help you feel more of a sense of being a part of or belonging in the downtown?
Thanks, Jennifer. So I'll repeat it just for anybody who's joined us mid-presentation, but please submit your questions and comments through the Q&A button on Zoom. We're centralizing all of the input through the Q&A tool. The chat tonight is disabled, and to make sure that we get everybody's comments and questions, we're using the Q&A button, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. So one question that's come in is about intercity transit service, and with Greyhound no longer being downtown, what considerations might there be for improving intercity transit or using a bus depot or space for transit users near the train station?
I don't know if city staff want to respond, but I can respond based on the knowledge that we've gained in our engagement.
I can start off. So certainly there's a number of intercity bus providers that are now offering their services within the city. We are continuing to work with those operators to find what the best route is to support their operations, but also support the flow of traffic on York Street. So we are actively looking into different options to um, support drop off and pick up locations. Certainly, we recognize that the Via Rail station is certainly a hub, and the rapid transit routes are certainly a hub for that. And how we can amalgamate those different services together is certainly something that's top of mind when we think of supporting intercity transit services. I'm not sure if Jennifer has anything further to add to that.
That's great, Mike. Thank you.
And just to clarify, when we say intercity bus travel, what are some of the companies, just that people might recognize that they see on the street? Is FlexBus one of them? Okay, thank you. Yes, intercity buses include FlexBus. Just a reminder, as I've had a few questions come in, these slides and the recording will be available on the project webpage tomorrow at getinvolved.london.ca/downtown plan. Comments are continuing to come in. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to share your experiences and ideas. There's been comments about more accessible transportation signage and information. Late night transit service, transit reliability and affordability. Comments about intercity train service. Thank you, everybody, for continuing to share comments. There is a question about park and rides. Could I ask the team to speak a little bit about park and rides, what they are, and how they may or may not be used in London?
You are testing me on this one, Andrew, but so there's a couple parking lots that the municipality owns and operates that we have looked into possibly offering different park and ride options for. Considering we've recently launched the rapid transit routes, that's certainly an option that we can investigate further as to whether or not there exists an opportunity for Londoners to drive into certain areas within London on the rapid transit routes, and then busing further. Certainly for the north and west sections of the city, that's also an option. We continually to look for different ways and investigate different ways to reduce the vehicular volume downtown to ease congestion, and certainly finding different aspects to leverage our new transit routes is something that we're always looking to kind of recalibrate and bring forward.
Thanks, Mike. And again, everybody, thank you for the comments. All your comments have been received. I don't see any further questions, so I'll pass it back to Jennifer and Catherine.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. I think the next slide is Catherine, so I'll let her take it from here.
Thanks, Jen. So the next theme is around economic and cultural resilience. So really meaning, how do we create the downtown as a place to work, to learn, to grow a business? So how do we ensure that the downtown has a good and diverse employment base, diverse amenities and services and retail that meet both the needs of residents in the downtown and visitors to the downtown, that experiential retail and entertainment and service piece as well. So ultimately, our goal is to support businesses, arts, and culture, and institutions to strengthen the downtown's economic base and cultural identity. So what have we heard? As I also already mentioned, we've seen that noticeable decline in foot traffic due to hybrid and remote work. There's a need for more funding and support for arts, culture, and events within the community and in the downtown, including leveraging London's UNESCO City of Music designation. How can we really maximize that and create a vibrant community and live that designation to its fullest? There's a desire for business incubation and growth opportunities in the downtown. So again, when we talk about the vacancies, and I think I saw in some of the comments there as well, how do we think about the buildings that aren't being used, the vacancies, and ensuring that they're leveraged to support some of those opportunities like business incubation, like growth opportunities, especially when you think about, as Andrew flagged earlier, that competitiveness of rent in the downtown. And then more tourism and marketing strategies to attract regional visitors. So, downtown London is a regional center. There's regional amenities, there's destination amenities, there's reasons to go to downtown London. So how do we make sure the messaging reflects that and is getting out both to London as a community and the region as a whole? And lastly, thinking about business diversification and how that could support more visitors and different types of visits. So how can we add more to the business mix, ensure that the businesses are diverse? So if one sector is doing well and another is struggling, they balance out a little bit better and ensure kind of that consistent traffic flow for businesses in the community in the downtown. So we have a number of questions as well to chat about under this section. So thinking about how can restaurants, shops, and small businesses adapt to fewer office workers while attracting new customers? New customers, maybe like yourself, or even thinking about how do we get the office workers that are there to participate in downtown businesses and what's going on while supporting that new customer base attraction. The big question here, what type of retail would you bring downtown? So we've already heard some comments around grocery store, and certainly that's been echoed throughout our consultation. So let us know what you're thinking in terms of what you'd like to see downtown. Of course, if you would like to see the grocery store, share that, but are there other kind of destination, interesting, unique retail pieces that you'd like to see, or retail anchors that you'd like to see in the downtown? What strategies do you think might sustain funding and visibility for arts, culture, and events year-round? So how do we ensure that these events are taking place year-round? How do we ensure the downtown is activated year-round and that those arts, culture aspects are visible throughout the year and the events as well? How can downtown become a stronger hub for business incubation, scaling, and innovation? So how can we better support the connection between the business community? How can we support their growth and ensure that there's a vibrant environment for them to grow and operate within as well, and also to innovate? What coordinated efforts could boost tourism, regional visitation, and a sense of everyday vibrancy? So again, what's going to draw people into the downtown? What's the messaging that we need to share about downtown London. What makes it unique? What makes it a draw for the community to draw in? And how can we better amplify that message? And then are there strategies, any strategies to support new and developing economic sectors in the downtown? So how do we encourage the growth of those new sectors? How do we identify them and connect them to existing business clusters that are taking place both within the downtown and within the broader community? So we'll give you guys a few minutes to give some feedback in that arena as well, and I'll pass it over to Andrew to facilitate that.
Thanks, Catherine. So I'm seeing several comments about types of businesses that people would like to see downtown. I'm also seeing lots of examples or other communities that people are sharing, and the examples of art that people have seen in other communities, different art programs, different art initiatives or events. Thank you for sharing all those examples. I'm seeing comments about supporting culture, heritage downtown, events downtown. This first question is kind of related to the programs and incentives that Mike spoke about. It's about what opportunities might there be to help a company or business start up? I know there's the Downtown London Business Association, the Small Business Centre in London. Maybe I could pass it over to Mike to speak about what support there might be to support businesses downtown.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, for the question. Certainly, there's different organizations that can provide some of that support in individuals who are looking to kind of open a business or start up a business in the downtown area. So, the Downtown London Business Improvement Association is a great contact for new businesses. Certainly, Small Business Center is also a great contact for businesses. I think maybe where this question is kind of leading towards more is sort of business incubation programs and opportunities for individuals to find kind of low rent spaces or subsidized rent spaces, and certainly that's something that we've heard throughout our engagement, and quite possibly something that we will pursue as we look at different actions and strategies to support that. I will also mention again the London Economic Development Strategy is also looking at different ways to support startup businesses and business incubation, and so we're going to make sure that those two strategies look for opportunities to provide that entrepreneurial spirit and support that. So whether that's partnering with our post-secondary institutions like Western or Fanshawe, or finding municipal owned or rented spaces where we can then subsidize the rent of individuals to have access to that space to operate their business or start up a business for some time, or even looking at different incentive programs that might help with some seed funding to support like a marketing campaign or a spot within the market or something like that. So certainly that's all on the table, and we have heard that from the public as something that we can do a better job of, and so we're certainly exploring that opportunity.
Thanks, Mike. Again, seeing lots of comments about the types of businesses people want to see, the types of events people want to see. And this next question is about events. How do special events fit into the downtown plan? And where do we think there might be an opportunity for an events hub in London's downtown? Does that fit into the downtown plan?
I'll take a go at that. Andrew, let me know if I've misinterpreted the question. So could you repeat the first half of what you said? I heard the
Yeah.
events hub, but there was something before it. How does it
Yeah.
fit into the downtown plan?
Yeah. Where do we think an events hub might be in London's downtown? And how might events fit currently in the downtown plan or broader plans from the city?
Great. So I would say, I mean, work today. We obviously haven't written the plan yet, but I would say I could provide some basics on what we've identified so far. So when we look at the downtown plan as a physical place, one of the things we're looking at is you already have a number of events venues. You have Victoria Park and Harris Park for large outdoor events. You have things like Canada Life Place and Market Lane. What we are seeing, and those have been very successful in bringing people downtown, hundreds of thousands of people come for those events. What are the small events that could be filled in between those to bring people on a more regular basis or provide things for residents that aren't already there? But I think it's also about how do we use events to continue to activate other spaces. So are there portions of the downtown, for example, that are very quiet or underutilized at certain times of the year or at certain times of the week? And how could events help to bring people to that space while also activating it and creating more opportunities. In terms of an events hub, I mean, if that's sort of in reference to a physical place, a sort of one-stop shop for events, I think we think of the downtown overall as an events hub and having multiple spaces that serve multiple opportunities depending on the size of the event, the time of year, that type of thing.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, and
This
I'll
next,
just
oh, go ahead,
add to
Mike.
that, Andrew, if you don't mind. I think also reviewing our event capacity, considering large events, is there additional partnerships that we could have with maybe RBC Place, with the market, with Canada Life Place, to find ways to offer new opportunities for event providers to host larger events, and then also seeing if there's any opportunities within our existing assets that we can leverage further, such as the riverfront, or expanding the activations and events that we offer on Dundas Place, looking for more opportunities throughout the winter. As Jennifer mentioned, when we think about activating spaces that are maybe a little quieter during the day or quieter during the weekend, exploring those avenues as possible event venues. Certainly those are things that we've heard from the public, and we're going to be exploring further in the next phase.
Thanks, Mike. This next question is about what makes a strong retail makeup downtown. And they ask, should the retail makeup of the downtown mirror the retail makeup of a shopping mall? Could we speak to that a little bit?
I just want to say that's a great question. Um, and I'll start, but Catherine's the economic development person, so I'll let her pick up. But I think maybe what I can comment on is the work that the Canadian Urban Institute has done in other downtowns, and something that we've seen. And I would say this was happening before the pandemic, but it was certainly accelerated by the pandemic, which is downtowns we're seeing, or retail, the sort of what we call brick and mortars, like a storefront, were less about a place where you went to buy things and more about a place where you went to have an experience. And that was accelerated by the pandemic because people oftentimes had to resort to online shopping, right? So you could still get a pair of shoes and a sweater online, but the experiences that are offered in a downtown, going out to eat, hearing live music, seeing a performance, those cannot be reproduced other than perhaps through a screen, are not as easily reproduced in the downtown. And so I think, what downtowns are trying to do now is finding a balance of the two, because I think people still like brick and mortar stores. They still like to be able to go and try on a pair of shoes instead of order it and have to send it back. But I think retail is changing, but I think we have to understand that there is still something, the term that is often used is destination retail, still something that will draw people to downtown that is different from the experience of shopping online. I would say in terms of your question about shopping malls, I mean, my general comment would be that shopping malls are largely you go there for the goods, not for the experience. And so they're almost sort of the reverse in the sense that you buy shoes and clothes and, records there, but you don't necessarily go to the shopping mall to eat out or to see a performance.
Thanks, Jennifer. This next question is related to performing arts and performing arts space. Would the downtown plan consider a downtown performing arts center or something like a performing arts cooperative that could support multiple organizations in London?
Jennifer, were you going to comment on this one?
I was.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I could get started. I think we could all jump in on this one. I
Sure.
think we recognize the importance of the performing arts and the existing resources and venues that already exist there. And I think we've seen some interesting examples with St. Paul's Cathedral and the renovation of the floor there, to create a performance space and what was prior to that a place of worship, and now serves multiple purposes. And we've seen other examples like the TAP Center for Creativity, which has taken over a building and restored it for artists' use. So I think we're already starting to see opportunities for adaptive. And I think as we get further into understanding the economics of downtown and what the gaps are, we would be able to understand whether, other performance spaces are needed and how that might be accomplished in the downtown.
Thanks, Jennifer. Just looking at the time, I'll pass it over to you, to continue the presentation and just remind folks that all your comments have been received, and we'll still have some time at the end of the presentation to answer any further questions.
So Andrew, yeah, what we had at the end was just a general Q&A. We were going to open it up more broadly for comments as opposed to restricting it to the themes.
Awesome. Okay, I do have some other comments that were a little bit more general that came in during the themes. And this next comment is, or this next question is kind of related to incentives and economic supports in the downtown. And it asks, how do commercial property taxes compare to other comparable cities? Commercial property taxes in the downtown, and have they been compared to other cities?
Thanks, Andrew. Our commercial tax rates, as set by our existing tax levy, they are lower than other cities downtowns that we've come across. They are a higher rent or a higher rate than the current residential rate. So commercial taxes are considerably higher than what you would be taxed on a residential property. So certainly looking at if there's a desire to reduce taxes in some sort of tax incentive program that's tied to redevelopment or rehabilitation, we do offer those programs as a ways to stimulate development of underutilized properties or older properties that we're looking to update. If it's more about finding different ways to support tenants, we don't have any incentive programs that directly provide tax assistance to business tenants. But certainly, if there is a desire for us to explore that further from the community, if businesses are feeling the hardships, the economic pressures, perhaps from some of the changing winds with the way trade revolves around North America these days, certainly that's something we can look forward through the economic development strategy in order to find a way to support businesses and make sure that they are on stable ground to continue to offer their programs and services.
Thanks, Mike. If there are any other further questions, please use the Q&A button and we can help answer any questions with the time remaining tonight. There were a few comments about construction in the downtown and folks sharing their experiences. And I know there has been a lot of construction recently in the downtown, but as Jennifer and Catherine presented, a lot of that was to enable the rapid growth that we've seen in our community. I'm wondering, Jennifer, could I pass it back over to you to speak a little bit about construction, what growth that has enabled? And I know some of the downtown construction is now moving out of the downtown into other areas of the city, but we have a very rapidly growing community, don't we?
Yeah, I'm happy to speak at a very high level. I'm sure there are others on this call that have more details about exactly what, the ins and outs. But we know, for example, Catherine showed that the number of $24 million, which is an investment in infrastructure, that will enable up to 17,000 new units of residential development. And so what this means is that, a downtown that is several hundred years old has a certain amount of, pipes and sewer and all those things. And when you see rapid growth in a downtown, you just need to enlarge all of those services, both to ensure that you have more capacity, but also to ensure that that nothing will fail. And so the investment that has happened in downtown London will enable the residential population to more than double based on that investment. So it's sort of a hardship on the front end in order to see, the kind of growth that you want to see on the back end. And then I know in addition to that, the investment in the rapid transit system, was also a construction had a construction timeline, and that would have impacted businesses and transportation around the city, but that is now complete, and the rapid transit system will, continue to be built out so that it's operational in the next few years.
Thanks, Jennifer. This question is almost a continuation of what you were just speaking about rapid transit. And it asks about the addition of transit priority measures at intersections. There's some, they comment about traffic congestion, traffic backups, and what might be possible to support buses or transit in the downtown. I'm wondering if we could speak a little bit about the rapid transit project and mobility for transit users downtown.
So I might take this one to start off and then pass it over to Jennifer to kind of comment on what they've heard about sort of transportation and mobility and congestion issues. But certainly the City of London's coming forward with their new master mobility plan. And that has been a thorough review of transit offerings within the downtown area, including active transportation such as cycling and biking routes, and have forecasted new investments for City Council to support in improving in and out access to the downtown area. So a lot of sort of the questions and comments related to fast tracking transit through certain intersections. There's a whole study about different ways to improve transit routes and improve transit service within the downtown area. And that's all incorporated within the master mobility plan. Certainly when it comes to the downtown plan, we'll look to see if there's any programs or actions or initiatives that can augment a lot of that work that's already been done and explored throughout the master mobility plan to see if we can provide a more cohesive solution to Londoners.
Thanks, Mike. This next question is about transportation and mobility as well, how it relates to train traffic at Richmond Street or near York Street. Is there a way to list the train schedules traveling across the city that could support people moving through the city? I know we have the Adelaide Underpass just outside of the downtown that was a huge project in the community that has opened up recently, and the park at McMahon Park is back open. And I'm wondering if we could speak a little bit about the rail crossings or mobility in those areas downtown.
I could start by addressing the first part of that comment, Andrew, which was the train schedules, which I think it sort of feeds into some of the other things we heard about. Sometimes the best thing could be just more information. When I'm going downtown and I have to circle blocks for 3 or 4 times because I'm looking for parking because I don't know, cost and hours and all of that. I think some of that is about sort of building a more resilient application or form of information that people can use that helps them flow more smoothly in and out of downtown. We didn't hear as much about congestion other than in large events, it being an issue. And I think some of the other things that have been talked about, like park and rides, the rapid transit system, et cetera, will help to address that. We did, however, hear just about sort of general safety concerns and the newness of the rapid transit system creating some of those safety concerns, cars not knowing sort of where they can go and can't go, pedestrians, stepping out to get on the bus and being afraid of intersecting with a car, et cetera. And so I think there's some work to be done around the education and sort of helping people understand how the system runs.
Thanks, Jennifer. This next question is about the environment, and will the downtown plan have considerations to support plants, animals, biodiversity, pets, etc.? Could we speak about that, please?
Sure, I can start. I think just maybe recognizing a few of the assets you have. So you have Victoria Park, which other than being a space for events several times a year, serves as a passive green space. And we know that that is very important for the residents in the downtown and will continue to be so as the downtown develops and as more people come to downtown and live here. I would say the other asset you have is the riverfront, and we heard a lot about that being an untapped resource, largely because not only is there a lot of recreation happening there now, but also because it is a naturalized waterfront, that it's not an industrialized waterfront like some larger cities where you have to remove those industrial uses, but you have the kind of natural ecology of the river. And so there's opportunities for recreation, for ecological programming, for educational pieces around species protection, that type of thing. And I think we can certainly build on that and recognizing that as an ecological system within the downtown that needs to be preserved. I would also say, when we look at the map, we understand that there are areas of the downtown that have more greenery and others that don't. And certainly part of what the downtown plan will look at is how do we address that through more greenery, more shade devices, et cetera, so that you're not only creating the benefits of greenery, but you're doing things like reducing heat that comes in hot weather, and can make parts of downtown less inhabitable than places that have more shade and greenery.
Yeah, and I'll just add that one of the mandates of the Downtown London BIA is to look at opportunities for beautification within the downtown area. And beautification can take many different shapes and sizes, and one of the most common ones we see are planters and hanging baskets. And so, are there opportunities to provide more flower boxes, whether that be at street level or hanging from some of the lamp posts and light standards we see throughout downtown, providing additional funding to our maintenance and programs teams to support the existing ecology network that we have downtown, or perhaps additional plantings. Certainly, we just undertook the revitalization of Harris Park, and there was a significant investment in redoing the riverfront there. So are there further enhancements or investments that we can make in the downtown area to support any ecology, biodiverse, or forestry initiatives?
Thanks, Mike. This next question is about dog parks. Are there any considerations for future dog parks in the downtown, particularly off-leash dog parks?
I can say, I will only comment to say that we have heard that, and I would say in terms of the list of programming and activities, that is on the list of something to explore further.
Thanks,
And
Jennifer.
that gets at the previous question about animals and pets.
This next question is about heritage and different pieces around the downtown, like the Holy Roller in Victoria Park. Are there any considerations or support to provide additional protection to different historic items in the downtown? And could we speak maybe a little bit about heritage in the downtown as part of the downtown plan?
Yeah, so certainly the downtown area has the Heritage Conservation District, and there's a couple different heritage conservation districts that overlap in sort of what we colloquially know as the downtown area. We do offer support programs to those property owners to preserve those buildings, and if they're looking to do any rehabilitation or redevelopment, we do offer programs to not only provide funding to support that, but funding to support those specific enhancements to that building that preserve that heritage or rehabilitate that heritage to a level that will sustain it for the future. When we look at some of the different cultural and heritage assets we have downtown, certainly if there's opportunities to improve them or to preserve them further, that's something that's within scope of any of the actions or initiatives that we come up in the next phase of the project. If that's a desire from the community to see, further protections and added. There is, some very sweeping legislation that's coming down from the province specifically about heritage properties right now. However, we are, continuing to be cognizant of heritage and the attributes that downtown London has. Certainly, we have a great historical stock of buildings within our downtown. We do have one of the more unique downtowns when it comes to that heritage stock of buildings. The low row housing and buildings along Dundas Place. Some of the older buildings that we see around Dufferin and Queens. So certainly, we're always looking at ways to preserve that because that adds character, that adds attraction to our downtown. And certainly when people walk downtown, it's great to see the new high rise and the flashy glass and all that going up. But we also want to keep those historical buildings as the historical character of our downtown and a reminder of our past.
Thanks, Mike. Let's go back to the environment. What considerations are taken around increasing numbers of heat waves, severe weather, and storms? How does the downtown plan consider resiliency and sustainability?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, Andrew. So we have, as part of our project team, I didn't really list out everyone in that opening slide, but we have brought on Arup, which is a large engineering firm, and they have been tasked with looking at environmental resilience. And so they are identifying areas that, through mapping are at risk of severe weather events, but also in looking at best practices across Canada to understand how through infrastructure investment, and other types of initiatives, additional greening could happen in the downtown that protects against things like, heavy rainstorms and flooding. I mentioned earlier, putting greenery and shade devices to bring down heating, and certainly, continuing to consider the sustainability options when we look at implementation in the plan will be important. And there's lots of great examples to point to.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I'll add, if you're interested in London's Climate Emergency Action Plan, visit london.ca/climate to learn about other city initiatives and programs to support the environment and respond to climate change. That's london.ca/climate. So I'm not seeing any further questions at the moment. Maybe I'll pass it back to the project team to speak a little bit about next steps or any final remarks tonight.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so we just have one more slide to summarize, which is what happens after tonight's event. So we have been taking notes. We'll obviously have the information from the Q&A. So for those of you who didn't hear your question asked, all of the work that has been put into putting the comments in the Q&A will be part of the information that we go through as we summarize our engagement and as we move into the next phase. As I mentioned before, we are finalizing our background study, which is the culmination of our research and analysis, and that will be brought to committee and council in the next few weeks. We are starting to draft actions for the downtown plan, and so the engagement from tonight will help to inform that. And as we move into phase 2, there'll be additional engagement. And so that will be another virtual session of this type, but with much more detail around the actions that are coming forward in the plan. And then the final downtown plan will include an implementation plan, some high-level costing and steps to implement with timelines, and that will be brought in the spring of 2026. And as you mentioned before, Andrew, the Get Involved page is the place to go for updates.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody, for attending this evening. We have so many great comments that will be shared with the project team tomorrow. Thank you for spending your time with us this evening, sharing your questions, sharing your comments, and participating in this plan. We'll be posting this presentation on the project's webpage tomorrow, and we'll continue to collect feedback through the Get Involved website over the coming weeks. So if you have a follow-up question or additional comments, please visit the webpage. Please email us at dmp@london.ca. You'll be able to review this presentation at getinvolved.london.ca/downtownplan. And please visit that webpage to subscribe for email updates, as we'll be able to keep you updated as this plan progresses. Again, that's getinvolved.london.ca/downtownplan. Thank you again for participating this evening, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Thank you for joining us tonight.